Hi, this is Stacey from The Advisor, and today I'm very excited because we have a very special guest. He's been on our show before, and he is the amazing Savio Clemente. He is a transformation coach. He's had TEDx talks, and he is covering the globe. Is it the you're covering the globals this year? And I'm very excited for him. And he has covered so many topics and overcame so many obstacles. And today we're going to talk about con understanding who and conquering our inner stranger. And so I'm going to give the floor to Savio and let him talk to you about actually getting in contact with your inner stranger and overcoming certain obstacles in your life. So take it away, Savio. Tell everybody a little about yourself and what you do.
Great. Stacy, thank you again for having me back. I really appreciate it. Last time we connected, I had my book, which then became a bestseller.
Yeah.
And to me, really all this means is that I took my pain and I found some level of purpose so that other people can resonate with it. So thank you for having me back. So today, everyone, I'm here to really talk about not only my background. So I'm a stage 3 cancer survivor. I'm also a board certified wellness coach, best-selling author, as I mentioned, and recently a TEDx speaker. I'm also a media journalist, so I cover different wellness experiences. I've been privileged to connect with celebrities on the concept of what wellness and illness is and what's the middle ground between the two. But today I would really like to talk about what I highlighted in my TEDx talk, which is the TEDx talk is called 7 Minutes to Wellness, How to Love Your Inner Stranger. And I know that initially when I brought that topic up, people were like, inner stranger, is that the inner critic that constantly, no, inner stranger is anything that you want it to be. For me, the inner stranger was my cancer survival story. That idea germinated with this idea of I saw myself physically dying because I was stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, bedridden for a week in the hospital bed because they had a nephrostomy tube that took away about 8 liters of fluid from my abdomen. And I
Wow.
just remember thinking, my physical body is dying on that bed.
Yeah.
And then, but my other parts of me were alive, like my emotions were alive, my connection to spirit or God or however you want to phrase it. My mental faculties were there because I literally created a Google alert. I had my smartphone with me. This was
Yeah.
in 2014. And I just remember thinking to myself, how do I pull the physical body that's dying? How do I pull that and let it sort of regenerate or let it
Yeah.
heal? And so for me, it was a constant back and forth. I was told by the medical director that I had to do my first round of chemo. Otherwise, she said in her words, I don't know what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And so I thought long and hard. And I realized that for me, the answer was this middle ground. And I talk about this phrase in a movie, and you can hear that in my TEDx talk, but it's really about I can do the route of traditional medicine, which I wholeheartedly believe is a healing modality, and we should
Yeah.
all look into it. But I also believe in this idea of there's other ways to heal the body, there's other ways to heal the spirit. And
Yeah.
so I decided to do an integrative approach. And so for me, the inner stranger was really this idea of shame. Cancer for me was a mirror into my own shame. I didn't want people to look at me as less than vulnerable. I remember my mom and my dad and my sisters. They were like, we got to tell your cousins, we got to tell your uncles and your aunts. And I'm like, please. I said, I know that's what you want me to do, but I don't feel comfortable because I felt like a zoo animal. I was
Yeah.
bedridden, and it's not like I'm die. I mean, I was dying, but I wasn't like on death's door.
Yes.
And
Right.
so I said to me, I didn't want to feel that way. And so for me, the inner stranger really allowed me to confront vulnerability,
Yeah.
and really try to rise above all that pain. And I left the concept of inner stranger nebulous because it means so many things to so many different people. So for Stacey, I'm just curious, and I know this is not normally done on your show, but how do you connect with this idea of your inner stranger?
My inner stranger. So trying to figure out my inner stranger, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is pain. And the reason why I say pain is because I've gotten through so many obstacles in life that were not easy journeys to overcome. And it started at the age of 5, and it just, I would have my ups and downs, illness-wise with my epilepsy, and then going through other, problems which caused pain. And it got to a point where I was trying to trying to get over that leap where you just don't want to feel the pain anymore. And even though you overcome the pain, it feels sometimes it's sometimes hard to escape that pain. And trying to go through different coping mechanisms and getting through life. I think my inner stranger is that pain I have that resilience in me that overcomes the pain and gets through it. But it's that fear factor, I think, inside. It's like, enough. I don't wanna have to experience any more pain. I've gone through it, I've lived it, I've overcame it, I wanna move on. But sometimes even though we move on, things start to creep up on us, and we have to endure it all over again, but in a different way. And it could be mentally overwhelming as much as physically overwhelming. So I think that would be my inner stranger in me, is that fear factor of pain first comes into my head, I think.
Mm. I I love that answer, and it's really the work that I do. As you know, I'm a board certified wellness coach, and my focus is really about cancer survivors and what that next step is. Like, okay, this horrible thing happened to you. You're out of treatment. Now, what is my life now? Like I tell people all the time, Stacey, like my cancer was a blood cancer. You can't see my scars. As a
Right.
matter of fact, my veins were so good, I didn't even need a port, like to get the chemo.
Yeah,
Now
yeah, yeah.
now they're shot, unfortunately. But um and I tell people like you can't ignore the fact that you lost a breast. You can't
Right.
ignore the fact that you lost a colon or
Yeah.
your throat or any other body part. And how do we live with that? And so that's my thing. Like, okay, this horrible thing happened to you. Now, how do you create that new version of yourself? And I just also like the fact that you mentioned this idea of you are much more than your disease. You are much more than the pain that life has thrown your way. You can conquer it all. But the first step is really sourcing out what's happening on the inside.
Yeah.
And I go into my TEDx talk because there's a healing modality in Hawaii called Huna healing. And an offshoot of that is something called Ho'oponopono, which I mentioned in it. And that's just basically means affirmations to yourself that you can talk to that part of your body or that part of that self that's not doing so well.
Yeah.
And you give self forgiveness and self compassion for that. And also exploring, like, emotionally, what's happening in your life.
Yeah.
Physically, obviously, we know what's happening, right? Something's happening that's not too positive.
Right.
But mentally, what's happening? What's your connection to something like source or God or universe or Jesus? What's your connection to something greater than yourself, like your soul? What's
Right.
your connections with your relationships with other people?
Yeah.
What's your connection with your dreams at night? So I go through all that, what I call the 7 energy centers, the 7 areas of life that really have meaning and impact. And for me, it was just a roller coaster. I wasn't able to process what happened to me
Right.
until about 5 years later when I was able to unpack because I was just on go. I was given the diagnosis. I did the first round of chemo. I ended up having 5 more rounds every 3 weeks. In between
Yeah.
that, I did, oh my God, I did a whole bunch of integrated modalities. I didn't care what it cost me because I wanted to find the path towards healing. I wanted to
Yes.
heal myself. I wanted to figure out what it was. What's the point of saving an investment if
Yes.
I'm never going to use it if I'm not there anymore? It didn't make any sense.
Exactly.
And so for me, it was really about confronting myself and figuring out and looking through what's happening with the process in general.
I love that. I love that. Now, at this point in time, ha what measures were the most effective for you to overcome and to connect with that inner stranger, and then to be able to move forward and to now, is it completely that inner stranger? You're self-aware of who that inner stranger is, and do you put that inner stranger once you've met him, you've dealt with him, and you've got in your affirmations, you focus on your affirmations, you move forward in life. Now, are there any leftover pain from what you went through that sometimes holds on to you or leaches to you, that in the back of your head you might be somewhere, deja vu, something brings back that inner pain or that inner, what you went through, for your your inner self.
Mm.
Yeah, how do you get through that all?
Yeah,
And
that's such an important question. When I started doing my TEDx talk or formulating that I was going to do one, um, a really glaring statistic really came at me. It was the CDC. It's called the NHANES study, and it really was a survey that said that 20 to 46% of cancer survivors experience some level of emotional or mental irregularity at least once a month. And
Yeah.
that to me was like, that's crazy. And you know, I've interviewed now 200 cancer survivors, which
Yeah.
then I took 35 of their stories, told my own. It became a best-selling book, which to me, the impact of hope lasted.
Yeah.
But when I was trying to write this talk, I was like, what's mostly important to me? So I created a framework and it's called Aloha, which is in reference to the Hawaiian healing that I mentioned. And really, it's this idea of the acronym is acknowledgement. Acknowledge where you are in your life. Don't pretend it's not there. Acknowledge it and be really clear as to what is happening. L stands for listening. Listen to that inner voice. Have those conversations with those different parts of the body.
Yeah.
I use a methodology in my coaching, which is called the three brains: the head, the heart, and the gut, and see what they resonate. Now, I'm not telling you to do this in public. Do this in the
Yeah.
privacy of your own home
Hmm.
and see, because there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that says that those areas of the body, the head, heart, and gut, especially the heart, resonate some level of knowing, some level of consciousness, some level of
Yes.
wisdom. And it's for us to do the job to figure out what that actually means to our lives. People can tell us, but you know, in coaching, the
Hmm.
greatest integration of anything is when you figure it out for yourself. A coach can guide
100%.
you, but you need to figure out for yourself, because I can tell you 10 different things, but not one of them will stick unless you believe that that will stick with you. O stands for opening. So open yourself up to self-compassion and self-forgiveness. A lot of this work is about releasing what's not there. I ended up doing an event in Brooklyn about a week and a half ago. I was one of the attendees, 400 of us on a Saturday, and
Right.
deep breath work. And a large portion of what he said was, you can't fill what you don't release. So if you
Right.
want to pour into yourself, you have to pour out what's no longer serving you.
I
H
like
stands
that.
for, thank you. H stands for harnessing. So harness the wisdom of all those body parts that I mentioned and all the experiences that you've gleaned, everything that you thought that was most important to you in your life. And A is really like acting, act on that purpose. So it's called Aloha,
Yeah.
and I detail it a little bit more in my talk.
I love it. And it's funny because when things do go on in my life, those are the areas that I feel get affected the most is the head, the heart, and the gut. And excuse me. I feel like I know things are going on just because I can feel it in those areas. And then when I look deep into myself and I meditate and I go deep down inside, I know exactly what's going on. And then so then when someone knows exactly if they're able to meditate, is there any specific meditations, by the way, that you suggest to people if they feel something going on within themselves, how they could connect with their inner selves to really understand what's going on, to find that inner stranger? Are there certain things they could do?
Yeah, I think a large portion, everyone wants to do the most popular, right? Lotus position, lighting
Yeah.
incense, chanting, humming. Those things are wonderful modalities. But if you're someone who has no idea what this meditation is, you've heard about it, you can't sit still for even a minute, just do it for 30 seconds. Just close
Yeah.
your eyes and relax. It doesn't have to even be sitting down. You could be lying down. Now, you got to watch the fact that you don't fall asleep, but that's a
Right.
learning, right? You have to sort of work yourself up there. Uh, but I would say it's really, there's few schools of thought. So one of them is a blank canvas. Imagine nothing is happening. That's very difficult to do. Some
Yeah.
of them say focus on one thing and let that grow. Another one is saying maybe a melody or phrase that can flourish within your mind. I
Yeah.
think really the key in all of it is just allowing yourself to be in the present moment.
Yes.
Don't think about what's happening tomorrow. Don't think about what just happened yesterday. Just think about what's happening now. And
Right.
if you are stressed for time, if you schedule your meditation before a huge meeting, of course you're going to be thinking about the meeting.
Yeah.
So I would suggest it's what I do. I wake up in
Right.
the morning, and besides my hygiene that I have to do, that we all have to do, I
Mhm.
meditate. I give myself that time, and
Yeah.
then I start my day. Because if I don't do it, then it becomes um, like I didn't succeed at something. You know how they always say the first thing that you can succeed at every day is to make your
Yeah.
bed?
Mhm.
So the second thing is to meditate. And meditate can just be as simple as just taking time out for yourself.
Yeah.
It could even be for you, if you're starting out, drinking that beautiful coffee or that tea that you want to drink in the morning and just having those moments of silence
Right.
because we're stimulated with there's so much activity that's being bombarded to us every day that
Yes.
it's hard to ignore if you're living in a modern world. It really,
Right.
really difficult. I actually was in India the whole month of December. I do a lot of work with National Geographic.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so they took me out to India. So I experienced 8 cities in 15 days. And I just remember thinking to myself, so my background is Indian. I have not been to India in 26 years, really long
Wow.
time. And I went to 8 different cities. And oh my God, it was really really eye-opening, and it felt like a once in a lifetime experience because I went to this one place called Varanasi, which used to be called Benares, which is known as the spiritual city of India.
Yeah.
And I went to this place called Sarnath in Varanasi, which the Buddha gave his first sermon. So I was literally there in the place where the Buddha gave his first sermon. And then they said Jesus, the lost years, said he traveled India. I don't, there. So it was just, but even when I was there, I could feel the energy, the heaviness, the history of the place. And
Yes.
I didn't know this, but they're saying that Varanasi is one of the oldest cities in the world,
Oh,
five,
really?
5 to 6,000 years old. So I
Oh,
could actually
wow.
feel like those little caverns and those little alleyways, you could feel that. And as you know, Varanasi is where they do the cremations, where they do the gats, where they
Yes.
have the cremations, because the Hindus believe that if you are cremated in Varanasi and your ashes are in the Ganges, they consider it the holy Ganges, that
Yes.
you have attained enlightenment, that is your last lifetime. And so I tell you this story because on the boat, when we were watching all of this happening, the cremations and the ceremonies, I felt a semblance of peace that I've never felt before. Even
Wow.
in my own cancer journey, I felt this level of acceptance and this level of an inner knowing. And
Yeah.
I really connected not only with my inner stranger at that moment in time, because I think we're a combination of the good, the bad, but I think
Hmm.
often we always look at the bad.
Right.
And at that moment, I saw the good and the gratefulness of being here, covering this, and connecting to my ancestral roots and seeing a different side of India that I haven't seen and a different part of the world that I haven't seen.
Yes.
I think the key here is what one of he's a UPenn professor. He talks about gratitude a lot, and he mentions that it's great to make gratitude lists, and I think we should all do that because there's so much to be grateful for in a
Yes.
complex world that we live in. But the key, he says, is when you write that list, ask yourself the question: why did that thing happen in my life? Why, for
Right.
example, if I'm grateful for the fact that I can pay rent, why am I grateful for that I can pay rent? I got an education, or I'm working hard and I'm providing. He says that gives you a level of knowingness, and that knowingness
Right.
then carries forward.
I like that. I like that. I feel gratitude is so important. I feel positivity and gratitude, I think, is what got me through life, and it also it taught me how to look at life differently. So I don't and no it became part of my lifestyle where I no longer looked at life and I had to like, you know, I was always gracious and always had gratitude for everything that came into my life. Even when I went through chronic illnesses, I was grateful for it because I don't think I would be the person I am today. And I said that one time when I was speaking in front of a group of people, and probably they looked at me like I had three heads on my head. But I don't think I would be the same person because I was headed in a completely different direction, before I got the chronic illness when it got really out of control. And then I had to slow down and change my entire life. But the life I journeyed down was actually a better life for me as a person. So I no longer look at people the same way with a different pair of eyes. I look at people. I have gratitude for every little thing because I realize we don't realize the littlest things in life when they're taken away from us, how much they meant to us until they're taken away. And we take things for granted. And I think we all are victims of that until they're taken away. And then you realize how, all the little things in life matter. and and positivity. We have to focus on the positive, because if we focus on the negative, it's gonna bring us down. It's gonna eventually destroy us. But if we focus on all the positive things in life, it will bring us up, and it will strengthen us. It will give us the courage, wisdom, strength, and hope that we need in order to move forward, and in order to become the people that we have become. And good energy brings good people, and good people help other people grow. And and it's the energies you carry. I believe, it's just because that's what the world is made of, really. If you think about it, that world is made of energy. Without energy, we wouldn't exist. We are energy. We're just in a bodily form, but we are energy. So if we have positive energy, that positive energy goes out and it draws in other positive energies. And I think those are important keys too. And I like that you brought up the word gratitude. And I like how you were taught to really think about the thing. Well, I paid the rent, but I was able to pay rent because I got an education. And then you think about the education, and then have gratitude because you had the ability. Why did you have the education? Why did you get the education? And then you go back and you start to really analyze all the little fragments of your life, and really think about how lucky of a person you are. And then you kind of just, I think that helps a lot mentally.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really great that you reflected on that because I did a panel talk last week and it was stage 4 cancer patients. Literally, this is the end for most of them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But there's a level of acceptance that they had. And one of them actually, I mentioned it. And so then they went further. And I said, I don't know if I would ever consider my cancer stage 3 as being a blessing. I don't know if I would ever call it that.
Yeah.
Because right? We think of a blessing as something that's bestowed on you that's
Yes.
considered good. But I'll be honest, the path that cancer showed me was this path. I'm doing the work of a survivor
Yeah.
and interviewing 200 cancer survivors, and I'm building an online community now soon. And I just did a best-selling book, and I did a TEDx talk about my cancer journey
Yeah.
and enveloping that. And I don't think that path would have shown because someone said, "Would you regret that? Would you go back and if you could, if you and I said, I don't think I would because I
Yeah.
think it really shaped who I am. And, I think sometimes in life we have to just accept what we can control and what we can't control.
Right.
And I challenge some of them actually, even though they're stage 4, because I understand how it is, that process is.
Yeah.
I said, if I was to wave a magic wand and take away your cancer, it's gone. What would you be doing with your life?
Right.
And some of them didn't even know because they're so focused on surviving rather
Yeah.
than living or thriving. And
Right.
so, and I said, make that list. And I said, is there anything on that list that you can do now, a little step that you can still do now, despite and in spite of your cancers, your stage 4 cancer diagnosis? And they were really moved and touched by that. And for
Yeah.
me, it's really about allowing people to see that they're greater than their diagnosis.
Yeah.
And this was echoed in a large portion of my interviews and my book that cancer is not a death sentence. No
Right.
matter what illness or thing we face, for you, it's epilepsy. For you, for other people, it's some level of you know,
Yeah.
they just can't do anything in life, or that the version of themselves is not greater and bigger.
Yeah.
But is it? Or is that the limitation that we put on to ourselves? Is there something else that you could be searching for and looking for? And that's the work I do with my coaching clients because not only do I help cancer survivors amplify their impact and tell their story, and I use my media journalism to do that, because at the end of the day, your story is something that no one can take away from you.
Yes.
Someone can take away your medical privileges, someone can take away your work, but no one can take away your story. You own that story. And for
Yes.
you to be able to tell that story in an impactful way, it's a book or a podcast, however my clients choose to do that,
Yeah.
that gives people the ability to say, oh, if they did it, I can do it. If they found it, I can find it. And if
Yeah.
they can find it, then maybe other people can as
Right. Oh, I love that. I love that. And it is, nobody can take away your story. And I think people do get fixated on the illness, so fixated that they can't see anything else but the illness. And that stops you from growing. There's always, where there's a will, there's a way. I truly believe that. And I think our bodies give up when we give up mentally. I think our mind is such a strong, we don't really give credit to how strong mentally our mind has. And between I always believe the heart comes first and then the mind. And but when you put those two together, if you're able to build a foundation, it's unbelievable what your inner self can do to your health, to your mental health, to your physical health. You can get through anything, a lot of the times. And yes, people who go through stage 4 cancer, many of them might not make it back, but you know, what do they have? If you could take away that magic wand, then what do they have? And they became so fixated the whole entire time that they didn't really probably get to appreciate some of the things they could have appreciated. You know, it's all how I guess we look at things, how we deal with things, you know.
Yeah. I look, at the end of the day, I told them, I said, cancer is a physical thing. It's
Yeah.
physically happening to you. And
Right.
your doctors and your care team, they're wonderful at that aspect. But that's
Yes.
only one aspect of your
Yes.
life. It's only one aspect of you
Exactly.
living in this world. Think about how crazy this is. We're living on a giant rock floating in space. Like, it's
It
insane,
is
you know?
insane.
And so you think to yourself, well, okay, am I much more than just this physical body that's inhabiting within me?
Yeah.
And I tell the story of my TEDx talk, and I'll give a little snippet in the beginning.
Yeah.
I start my TEDx talk was, have you ever struggled to recognize your own reflection?
Right.
And that's a powerful statement because for me, I used to think to myself, like, am I more than just this physical shell that I see with
Yes.
myself? And I know this is going to the realm of woo woo and all. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It could be as
Yeah.
simple as just mining for yourself what that actually means to you.
Right.
And when I go and have these conversations, these coaching conversations with my clients, you know, oftentimes I rely on my training, this idea of positive psychology. Like, okay, how can I manage the situation despite my challenges? How
Yeah.
can I have self regulation and reclaim that inner strength by creating, oh, coaches love this, and you know this, vision, not a
Yes.
goal, but a vision. A vision is, how do you want to feel? How do you want to be? How do you want people to perceive you? How do you want to perceive yourself?
Yes.
And that's the key. The key is to see yourself outside of yourself. So, little
Yes.
clue, the inner stranger is something that's beyond you,
Yes.
because a stranger can be a friend, or
Right.
a stranger can challenge you to see yourself as better.
Right. Very true. Very true. And I think sometimes we are most affected sometimes by unbiased opinions by others, and I think we could also get a lot of help by people who are unbiased, don't know you that well, just know you from what you've told them, but they have the biggest impact because they're not judgmental and they're open-minded and they're listening, and like you said, they're letting you come up with the answers, not even realizing it, because we all have the answers within us, but sometimes we are blocked in certain in areas of our life and we can't see those answers.
Yeah. And even as a media journalist, like, I'm there and people are like, wait, you just interviewed Venus Williams and you just interviewed Ice-T and you just interviewed, aren't you nervous? I'm like, no, they're real people,
Yeah,
humans. Like, and some of them have bigger problems than we do, right?
right,
Like Venus Williams, people see her as the epitome of sports, but
right.
she was very candid. She launched a wellness brand. She's like, I'm going
Yeah,
through digestive issues. It's hindering my ability to perform. And she's like, if I'm not vocal about this and I don't tell people about it, then they're suffering in silence. So I'm
yes,
here to offer another avenue. What helped me, what healed me. And I really thought that that particular aspect of what she was trying to create was really powerful, because it's
yeah,
saying, what people perceive you, right? We live in this Instagram world where people are curating, a TikTok world where people are curating things for
yes,
you. What's really happening behind the scenes? And I really
exactly.
enjoyed that. And you started the show off by saying that this weekend, or I'm supposed to go cover the Oscars. Like, that to most people will be like, whoa. But I tell people all the time, like, going through what I've been through, it's an icing on the cake, but
Yeah,
it's really about, for me, and what my editor trusts me is, what's the real answer to what we're all longing for,
yeah,
searching for, trying to heal from. What is that real answer? And
right,
I live in this world of objectivity because I've been through what can happen to you that's horrible. And I've
yeah,
been through, now on the other side, 9 years in remission, thankfully,
yes,
to see. what the possibilities can be. Now, I don't know
Yes.
what's going to happen a year from now. It could be really bad, but I live in this moment of
Yes.
saying that I can do what I need to
Hmm.
do, and I have the strength to see and have the vision to
Yeah.
make it happen and real.
Yeah. I worked for in the media and I worked with a lot of celebrities and stuff like that, but I never looked at them as celebrities. I always look at them as just regular people. And I don't know. I never could understand why people idolize them so much because they were just like us. Their job was to entertain, but behind the cameras, behind the scenes, they were just like you and me, going through life, going through obstacles, going through their daily lives, and yes, some of them may have had bigger egos than others, but they all had regular lives, and I always looked at them as it was their job. It was no more than that. And the reason why I was excited for you for, being able to cover the global awards was because you got to that point where people had trusted your abilities enough to send you there. It wasn't the fact that you're going to the global awards, it was the fact that you have the ability and the capabilities to be able to your knowledge of writing and being able to take your thoughts and collaborate them into something beautiful where other people trust what you say, value what you say. Therefore, they're sending you to there. That's what I look at. I look at it as like, wow, you've gotten to this level of achievement where people look at you as not just a writer, not just a reporter, but you are a valued instrument in the world of journalism. To me, that is a huge accomplishment because I've been in journalism for all my life, and I feel that's a great accomplishment.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I tell people all the time, like my 20-some-year-old self, I'm in my early 40s, by the way, or mid 40s. Just had a birthday.
I'll switch
But
your birthdays with you because mine's coming up, but I'll switch numbers.
oh, okay, there you go. We're similar in that aspect. Probably my 20-year-old self would probably be like, what? Like this, like
Yeah,
all ego, all about me, 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 me. And it's
yeah,
really not. When I did my TEDx talk, and I'll give a little preview for your audiences listening, I was chosen. So there were only 10 of us chosen.
yeah,
There was over 300 applications. They chose me to go first, so I knew I had to set the bar, set the
yeah,
standard. I mentioned to you earlier, or maybe I didn't mention to your listeners, but doing a TEDx talk was overcoming a fear of mine. The fear
yeah,
wasn't about talking, the fear about people staring at you. So there was
right.
225 people in the audience in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I go up, I did 1 minute of it, mic issues, come all the way back behind the scene, stage, get out there, 2 minutes, another mic issues. The organizer runs down. She goes, listen, this is not live stream. This is film live, but it's not live stream.
Right.
Go back, we'll fix it. I come back out. I do my whole 10 minutes, no mic problems, no issues. I got through it. And I will say after the second time, I was frazzled. I like lost my place in what my talk was about because
Yeah,
that's what happens. And after I gave my talk, thankfully I got a standing ovation or rousing ovation. And a guy comes up to me. He's like, what you did on there was amazing. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, what I saw was like you were up at bat in a baseball game. Strike one, not your fault, but strike one. Strike two, not your fault. Strike three, you hit it out of the park. It was a home run. And he's like, what you showed was resilience up there. Before you talked
yeah,
about resilience and your story, you showed it. You didn't wince, you didn't yell, you didn't scream, you didn't look angry. You were just
yeah,
cool, calm, and collected. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, you don't know this about me, but I'm a New Yorker. I said, I've been through the dot-com crash in the early 90s when I
yeah,
was just out of college. I've been through 9/11.
yeah,
I've been through my own personal journey. I went through a business, a financial situation that left me financially like in ruin.
yeah,
And I've been through my own cancer journey. I said, that's not going to stop me. I said, I've been through
right,
too much. I said, if they wanted me to do 20 more times, I would have done 20 more times. I came there to do a job. And
right.
I think that's a very key point. I'm not saying that I survived cancer because I was the strongest. And,
Yeah,
in the cancer world, people are always little hesitant of using the word fighter.
yeah,
All I know is I knew for myself that I was worthy of
yeah,
something greater than my illness. I was worthy of seeing myself as finding some way to find healing. And
yes,
healing, and I think I mentioned this in our first podcast session, doesn't always take place in a chemo bed? Does it
Right.
always take place in the medical office? It does. That's the majority of where healing can
Yeah.
happen. But healing takes place in those small moments. Could be
Yeah.
when you're sleeping, could be when you're lying, could be when you're so much in pain that you don't know how to even overcome this.
Right.
Healing occurs in all ways and means. And for me, I wanted to find that answer for myself because
Yes.
my healing is different from other people's healing. It's
Yes.
my job because it's always an inside job.
Yes. I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
This has been an amazing journey. I commend you. You've come such a long way. Now, your book, what is your book titled?
Sure. So the book is called I Survived Cancer, and here is how I did it. 35 cancer survivors share their journey. You can find on Amazon and I also have an audiobook accompaniment as well. Just you can go to my website, which is saviopclemente.com. There you can also, if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, options are there. You can sign up for my weekly newsletter. I go into the head, heart, and gut. I talk about a concept or something that I've discovered, and I'm just really honest about how that can help other people understand their own life and where they are. And also, to a large degree, I'm building an online community as
I
well
love it.
that's launching in the next couple of weeks. So I'm excited about that. But that's all on saviopclemente.com, or you can go to any of my socials. I'm on all of the platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. At The Human Resolve is my handle for all those social media sites.
I love that. Now, if you had to take everything that we talked about today and you had to sum it up, what are certain things you'd like to emphasize to some of the listeners today?
It's really something that how I ended my TEDx talk, Stacey. To know thyself is to heal thyself. It's an ancient saying, but it's so true
Yeah.
because in order to understand the world, you have to understand yourself. It's incumbent upon us. It's pertinent upon us. This world is filled with so much creature comforts and so much things that are shiny
Yeah.
objects, as I call them, or so many things that we want to accomplish and
Yeah.
get and have and hold and cherish and embrace and wonderful things.
Right.
But our job here on this planet, in this world, in this time, is to really understand how can we make a contribution to ourselves and to the world at large. And if you're
Yes.
not someone who cares about making a contribution to the world at large, that's your prerogative. You don't have to, but
Right.
you have to do the work because we're all in here trying to figure out why are we living the way we're living? Why is this pain happening to us? How can I get to that next level
Hmm.
of relief? And I
Yes.
think it's important to score that particular point. To know thyself is to heal thyself. And
Yes.
there's so many ways to know yourself. There's so many tools and resources online and in person that we can find ways to do that, to honor that aspect of ourselves.
Can you name a few tools to people just so they have an idea of certain things they could look into that might be helpful for them?
Sure. So beyond watching my TEDx talk, I know that's a shameless plug. No, beyond that, beyond the Aloha methodology that I mentioned, beyond meditation that I mentioned, simple meditation, beyond this idea of breath work, you could use the box breathing technique, 2, 3 breaths in and out. You can also do something that I start every coaching session with, which is breathing into the different body parts of yourself, taking a
Hmm.
few minutes to just slowly breathe in and out on all the areas of yourself. It tells
Yes.
it a lot of people tell me that when I start that off, they're like, I'm in a whole different zone right now. I'm
Yeah.
totally connected with you. I think another thing could be journaling. Like, it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be like journal books of like the yesteryear where you're writing like your deep, dark secrets. It could just be what happened today? What
Yes.
transpired today? What am I grateful today? What
Right.
didn't go so well today? What can
Right.
I do better today? Could just be as
Yes.
simple as that. Um, I would say that you could reframe this idea of to-dos to
Hmm.
want to do's. So it doesn't have to be I have to do it. It has to be I want to do it or I
Right.
get to do it. Because if you get to do something, then you feel, oh, I have the ability to do that
Yeah.
rather than feeling I have to do that. So it
Right.
changes that whole aspect of self. I would also say some level of connection with higher source. With for you, if that's
Yes.
prayer, or if that's affirmation, or if that's chanting, or if that's humming, or
Hmm.
if that's just going into yoga class or Pilates class and just bending into a pretzel,
Yeah.
whatever it is that allows you to reset, then that allows you to reset. And I think lastly, above all of those, is really about being kind to yourself. I'll be
Yes.
honest, I really wasn't kind to myself with cancer. I saw it as a challenge. I was focused. A lot of people, my dad was like, "You want me to come, for you to get chemo?" I said, "Dad, you staring at me for 5 hours is not going to help me. It's going to make me feel like I'm antsy because I'm going to try to like make you feel comfortable."
Yeah.
So what he did was, he would pick me up from the 6 rounds,
Right.
which was really nice. So I think it's this idea of just being really kind to yourself. And how does that start? That starts from being self-compassionate and self-forgiveness.
Yes.
Like I messaged, what you can't pour out, you can't pour in. So you got
Yes.
to let those things go. So I would say those are a few tools that they could use.
I love those tools, and those are the tools that I use to myself to actually get forward in life and to move forward. And for forgiveness, do you have a couple of suggestions for people? Because that's something that people have a very hard time forgiving themselves. They hold on to the past, they hold on to their mistakes, they hold on to what others do, and they can't let go.
Mm.
What's your, before we go, can you tell us a couple of suggestions for people who are don't know how to forgive themselves or don't know how to forgive others? Because we don't have to verbally hear the person say, "I'm sorry." We have to be able to forgive them for their actions or forgive ourselves from the mistakes we've made. But one way or another, we need to let go after we go through the process of forgiveness. So how do we do that?
Yeah. So in Ho'oponopono, which is what I mentioned, there's a
Yeah.
phrase that people repeat over and over again. It's "I love you, I forgive you." It's really about honoring something greater than your mistakes, something
Yes.
greater than what just transpired or what has transpired in your life. So think the key element there is really, instead of letting it ruminate within your head and in
Mm-hmm.
your heart, write it down. Write
Yeah.
down all the things that you perceive that someone
Mm-hmm.
has wronged you, or that you had maybe wronged someone else because you just didn't know better or you just didn't do better. So I think that's the starting point. The second thing with self-forgiveness is, and Oprah said it best, so I'm going to take a little bit from her from the 90s. Forgiveness is not about the other person always. It's about
Yes.
yourself.
Yes.
Can you forgive what transpired? Are you able to let that go? And
Yes.
letting go doesn't mean letting go and forgetting, because you also have to realize if you forget, then you're going to repeat. So
Yes.
it's honoring and forgiving what happened to you, but not forgetting, because then you're going to repeat what transpired. I
Right.
think the third thing above all of it is really, and this is for people who believe in something greater than themselves.
Right.
I know a few people who are atheists who don't believe in anything greater than that, and that's their right to believe that.
Right.
But I think it's also about creating that inner peace and giving
Yes.
it to something greater than yourself, saying,
Right.
"I surrender to this particular pain or this
Yes.
particular situation. I surrender it to something greater than myself."
Right.
Because, like I mentioned, we're floating on this giant rock in
Yes.
space, billions of us,
Yes.
and we can't figure out the mysteries of life and death. I think
Mhm.
that's for us to unravel,
Mhm.
for us to work out,
Yes.
and for us to understand. Because at the end of the
Exactly.
day, it's really about understanding ourselves and the world
100%.
around us.
100%. Oh, I love when I talk to you. I just love it. You have such great knowledge. And I love, when people, if they want to go to your TED Talk, do they go to your website? Because I see the intro to your TED Talk there. Can they see the TED Talk there, or do they have to go to your YouTube channel to see it?
Sure. So they can do either one of two things. You can go on Google and type 7 minutes to wellness, how to love your inner stranger. You can type my name, but I'm just warning you. I fill up a lot because I put about 10 articles per week, and
I
I'm
know.
doing all these different things. And I'm launching season 4 of my podcast finally because I put it on hold for my TEDx talk. But
Yay.
if they go to Savio P Clemente, CLEMENTE.com, and I'm sure you can have it in the show notes, you could scroll down and there's a link to my TEDx talk as well there, and every other thing that I do, my book and
Yeah.
my newsletter and my community that's starting. And so I would say that's probably the best, is just to go to that website. It's there.
Yeah.
The initial video that you see is my speaker reel that just got launched actually last week. So I'm excited about
I
that.
saw that. I love it. It's beautiful. I
Thank
saw
you.
that.
Thank
Yes.
you. Appreciate it.
I know we've known each other a long time, and I've always honored your work, and I always honored everything you did because I love you. You think very similar to I do. We're on a we do things a little bit differently, but our thoughts are online with one another, and I love how much you've been able to overcome and like myself, it took time, but I learned to love myself. I learned to accept myself. I overcame the obstacles in my life and I was able, just like you, we were able to move forward. And my biggest gift was the first thing I wanted to do was help others because when I was going through the rough patches in my life, people came out of the woodwork to help me. And so the first thing in my head was I need to help others. Once I unraveled how to help myself, then I wanted to teach the world because I felt like that was my calling, and I think, it's funny because when you wrote your book, you interviewed people with cancer. When I wrote my book, I interviewed people with epilepsy. And I put those stories in my book, and even I had a person write to me, and they found my book in Barnes& and Nobles, they read my book, and they said they followed my regiment, and they said that, they thanked me because they were on the verge of suicide, and they said it saved their life. And I think that's when the light bulb went off. I realized my calling, and I realized how powerful the wisdom of words really is. Whether you verbally say it, whether you write it on paper, you know, the words that come out of our mouths, the words we put on paper can have such an impact on other people's lives. And I thought that was such a powerful tool that needed to be performed in the right way, and how we could save so many lives and help so many people by the gift that was given to us.
Yeah.
And you have the gift.
Oh, I appreciate that. But I think what's also common about both of us, and people ascribe these labels to us, right? We're leaders. We do
Yeah.
leadership work. We're leadership this and leadership that. And leaders are just people that you follow, but you follow them. Why? Because they've done the work, they believe in the cause,
Hmm.
and they're able to allow you to see yourself because
Yes.
they see themselves as that way as well.
Yes.
So I think that's a very important point to anyone listening. You don't have to be this highfalutin person like
No.
you or me that's doing all these crazy things in the world. It could be as simple as your family. It could be as
Yeah.
simple as your household. It could be as
Yeah.
simple as your community, simple
Yes.
as your congregation. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be this lofty thing. If it is,
Yeah.
wonderful, join us.
Mm.
But it can just be about you being that example for yourself
Right.
so that others can see that example in themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. This has been an honor, Savio. I love having you on the show, and thank you so much for coming on this show. And is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we go?
Probably the last thing I want to say is because of the complex world we live in, right? There's wars happening, there's dissension happening, people are not agreeing with each other, people are
Yes.
violently opposed to this and opposed to that. I think I want to just leave people with what I talked about with those stage 4 cancer patients who really at this point have no other recourse. They know it's going to be end for them soon.
Yeah.
The idea of legacy. How do
Hmm.
you want your life to be perceived by others?
Yes.
Not in a judgmental way, but
Right.
in a way that allows them to feel that they connected with you. Because
Yes.
isn't what the purpose of all of us here is to do is to connect with one another some
Yes.
level, even if we have problems,
Yes.
isn't there some level of connection there? And
Yeah.
maybe the key for us is to work it out. And
Right.
I will just probably say this one last point because I'm a science person, but there was this episode, and I'm dating myself here back in the 90s, X-Files, and there was this one episode, and it always sticks by me in everything that I do, where Mulder, Fox Mulder, he was one of the
Hmm.
characters, ends up unraveling a Janaya, a female genie,
Yeah.
and basically gives him all these wishes, and he messes up on the first one because he asked for peace, and peace was just silence. He's like, "Wait, that's not what I said." She goes, "That's not what you meant." Anyway, last thing is he was trying to write this whole big thing like on the computer and trying to make it all perfect and everything. And his partner, Scully, comes in and she goes, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "You don't remember like not being here on the face of the earth?" And she's like, "No." And so she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm writing the perfect wish and everything." He's like, "Peace on earth and democracy for everybody and all this." And she goes, and he's like, "What's wrong? That's gonna help everybody." And she goes, "Maybe that's the purpose of why we're all here, to work it out."
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we're here. And I was like, wow, it was so profound even back then for me that it's
Yeah.
still stuck by me 25 years later.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the key. We're all looking for the solution, but the solution always resides within us, first and
Yes.
foremost, because we are a reflection of everything that we get and everything that we give.
Right. I love it. Oh my God. That's wonderful. Savio, thank you so much for coming on this show. This has been amazing. I really appreciate it. I hope you'll come on again and then we could continue our talks. But this has been amazing. And thank you for everything you've shared today. And congratulations on all your accomplishments. I truly honor you and all the work you've done. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacey. Thank you.
You have a great day.
Yes, you too.